Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wolfe here, and in this video, I'm going to be going over the videos that you needed to make for your e-learning day on Wednesday. So remember, the first part of your assignment was to watch that video on page 3, just to kind of get an idea of what type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes is, and then your goal was to take that information and be able to present it using the model pieces that we've done from class in terms of what diabetes 1 is, what diabetes 2 is. So this is going to be the feedback in terms of what your models should have looked like or what your videos should have looked like. So kind of, as you're watching this, kind of compare it to what you filmed today and see how close it is. And were you correct? And even if you were correct, did you go in as much detail as I did? Because that's important as well. So let's start off with type 1 diabetes. Right? So with type 1 diabetes, the first question we're going to ask that was on your sheet today is, when you eat a meal, right, your small intestines are going to absorb that glucose into your bloodstream, so our blood glucose levels have risen. Now, what is going wrong with type 1 diabetes is normally your pancreas would secrete insulin into the bloodstream if that happens, but if you have type 1 diabetes, you don't even make insulin. Right? So if you don't make insulin, there's no insulin to go to the liver, the muscles, to take that glucose up, and so your blood glucose levels stay really, really high, and they never go back down. So if you have diabetes 1, homeostasis isn't achieved. You have these high blood glucose levels, and that could cause damage to a bunch of the other organs in your body if you have a lot of glucose running through them. And in other words, we could say this is, instead of saying that homeostasis isn't achieved, is that negative feedback mechanism that would normally work, where insulin's secreted by the pancreas. There's no negative feedback in this case, and that's why homeostasis isn't achieved. So let's look at type 2 diabetes. So if you have type 2 diabetes, and let's kind of take away some of the glucose again. It's going to start off similarly, where what happens after you eat a meal. So after you eat a meal, your small intestines are going to absorb that glucose into your bloodstream, so your blood glucose levels rise. And then normally the pancreas would secrete that insulin into the bloodstream, and it does at type 2 diabetes. Your pancreas can make insulin. Sometimes it just doesn't make enough, but what usually happens is it actually makes plenty of insulin, right? And then this insulin goes to the liver, right? And it goes to the muscles as well. Right? I can even have more insulin go. Right? So there's insulin in the body. So it's almost like the negative feedback response has started, right? Blood glucose levels are high, all right? The body's responding, but the response doesn't follow through. And this is what I mean by this. The insulin goes to the liver, it goes to the muscles, but it's almost like the muscles aren't listening. It's almost like the liver isn't listening. Even though the insulin goes to these organs, they don't start taking in the glucose. Right? So the liver doesn't take in the glucose, the muscle really doesn't take in the glucose, and glucose stays in the bloodstream, so glucose levels remain high. Right? So in this case, even though the negative feedback response it's almost attempted, right, it doesn't follow through, and so homeostasis, again, isn't achieved. So in both type 1 and type 2 diabetes, you end with having too much glucose in the bloodstream, and that could be damaging for some organs.